the Egyptians were able to work with crystals, which we see in rare but occasional figurines, but never has magnifying glass been found, and the level of magnification is considerable in order to know in order to be able to physically see a sperm cell. It's thought by the academics that they may have used a cow's eye, the lens of a cow's eye, for certain orders of magnification, but again, it's hard to imagine that that could be used to view the physical sperm cell, so this remains actually rather more of a mystery than people like to acknowledge.
The Temple of Luxor is in every respect the living image of man. Like man, it began from a seed containing the overall plan for what it would ultimately become. It grew in time in accordance with the geometry of life, and we can see that the stages of the temple's growth correspond very closely with the 4 stages of human growth that are governed by the pituitary gland. Was this a functional necessity for the temple to perform its task? On Schwaller's plan, this hall corresponds to the eyes and optical center, where the nerves cross, and the right brain receives what the left eye sees, and the left brain receives what the right eye sees. The hall is dominated by 12 columns.
This is known as the Hall of 12 Columns, which represents symbolically the 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. It's interesting to note that the optic nerve consists of 12 bundles of nerves. This is the center of vision as it relates to consciousness.
Above the optical center of the temple, in what would correspond to the higher glands of the brain, we find a set of 3 interlocking sanctuaries. The solid stone walls between the 3 chambers hold one of the most amazing surprises to be found at Luxor. The expansive imagery carved into each side of separating walls can only be understood by combining the images carved on the other side of the same wall. The images interlock, enhance, and complete each other. It is as if a single image or idea was etched partially on one side of a thick sheet of glass and partially on the opposite side. The wall itself connects and synthesizes them. It is as if the walls depict a sacred thought being transmitted through the brain. This triple sanctuary is home to the pineal gland, or third eye. The enigmatic cobra rising from the third eye of the pharaoh is so prevalent that it is almost synonymous with Egyptian art. What did it mean? The central aspect of the pharaohs was that they were humankind perfected and elevated to a divine plane. The cobra over the pineal gland area served as the perfect insignia for their status, but also connects to a concept found in countless cultures. It echoes and amplifies the similar concepts at the heart of Hindu and Asian sacred teachings. The transformation into a higher spiritual manifestation is symbolized by the Hindus as a kundalini snake. It represents life energy, redirected and refined for the creation of a higher spiritual presence. Similarly, throughout tantric, alchemical, and modern magical disciplines, it is an indicator of the universal pursuit of higher consciousness.
A curious note concerning the Uraeus serpent, the cobra that appears over the forehead of the pharaoh's headpiece and such. While obviously a symbol of the activation of the Ajna chakra, the third eye chakra, and the psychic system of mankind. It also points to a secret form of worship open only to initiates. So while the populace, while the masses worshipped the bull of Taurus, and this was during the astrological age of Taurus, they publicly worshipped the bull. The priests, the kings, secretly worshipped the snake of Scorpio, which is on the opposite pole, directly opposite in the zodiac from Taurus.
This ancient and secret science, called Kundalini in some cultures, is universally represented by and symbolically associated with the snake. This arcane and magical science seems to have occupied a position of great importance in the minds of the Egyptian elite. In every culture, the symbolism of the snake is deeply rooted in magic, in forbidden knowledge, and in the pursuit of higher states of consciousness. In this relief from the tomb of Seti III, we see not only the snake symbolism, but we see the rising sun, itself a symbol of the dawn of a higher consciousness, cresting two intertwined serpents. What makes this relief even more interesting is when we overlay the same template provided by Luxor Temple. The symbolism of this relief becomes clear. We see so many correlations it seems incontrovertible that these two images are linked in some way. This ancient and secret science, symbolized by the snake and associated with rising light and higher consciousness, seems to have been of central importance to the magical operations employed to gain mastery over the transition into the afterlife. In nearly every ancient culture which placed a value on the pursuit of higher states of consciousness, the symbolic use of the snake to represent various channels and forces of higher, subtle or spiritual energy is a universal tradition. The location of the rising cobra at the exact site of the third eye reinforces the special emphasis placed on this same site by the pylons and connects this symbolism to the rich heritage and palincultural associations it carries. The mysteries of the Temple of Man remain beyond our full grasp despite many tantalizing insights. New research continues to produce new revelations. Our realization that the very gateway pylon serves as a metaphor for human consciousness is just the most recent development. When will we understand how the ancient Egyptians could have drawn microscopic cells? Or was the proximity of a graphic depiction of male sexuality and a lifelike sperm cell just a wild coincidence? What is the meaning of a depiction of an immaculate conception in the year 1300 BC? The sophisticated levels of artistic, scientific and spiritual knowledge that were required for the design and construction of the Temple of Luxor defy easy explanation, and so were long ignored by traditional Egyptology. Recent revelations show that the temple was a complex sacred teaching designed to be studied over time. It was a magical instrument intended to demonstrate and even facilitate the devoted student's connection to a conscious universe. For those who could read the ancient language of the temple, it provided a map of that universe as reflected in humanity. Today, our resurgent understanding of the temple's symbolic riddles allows us to see that the temple's architecture remains vital and alive. By continuing our research, we maintain a connection to a civilization that came before. We keep open a passageway into the life of ancient Egypt, magical Egypt.